So good morning. My name is Xavier Rose. I'm a mechanical engineer. I'm working at NAVSEA in Lakehurst, New Jersey. With me today is Miss Davis. Miss Davis, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning, Xavier. Good morning, everyone. My name is Karen M. Davis. I am most recently assigned as the Executive Director for Industrial Operations at Naval Sea Systems Command. I've been in this capacity for approximately 2 weeks, and immediately prior, I was the Executive Director at Program Executive Office for Aircraft Carriers. I've been with the Navy for most of my federal career, including 10 years early on as a computer and electronics engineer at Port Hueneme Division of Naval Surface Warfare Center. At this stage in my career, I'm a member of the Senior Executive Service, and again, I serve principally in the executive director role for NAVSEA and affiliated PEOs.
Could you just kind of go into how your Department of the Navy journey came about?
Absolutely. So my journey throughout the Department of Navy started with, again, being a computer and electronics engineer. My early career was spent principally shipboard, learning systems, interfacing with the sailors who were using those systems to deliver capability. And I think one of the things that's most interesting is that my career started with the Aegis weapon system, which is, as you may know, the one of the premier combat systems in today's surface fleet. So started very early in that particular area of expertise. One of the things I think is most interesting about that is I had the opportunity from early on to be involved in developing capability. So a big aspect of what we do is that early focus on new added capability. And so I was able to, by virtue of the Aegis weapon system at that time being relatively new, I was able to be involved early on in bringing what is now a very mature and a very reliable capability to the fleet. So for a young person recently graduating from college to be involved in a premier capability development set like Aegis was at that time was absolutely additive to my early career. And then at some point, making the transition from workforce into more the managerial, the supervision, and then the managerial and eventually leadership role. Um, the ability to take those lessons, especially in those first several jobs, and still be able to relate heavily to what it's like to be a member of a heavily technical workforce as you now transition into management. I was extremely fortunate to move into leadership at the field activity where, again, I had grown up and really was part of that technical workforce and now leading that technical workforce. A lot of aspects of that job allowed me to again remain connected to the work that was occurring. So I'll just quickly transition to the time where I left the field activity and came to NAVSEA headquarters. And therein now you're being exposed to the fact that much of what we do relative to delivering capability has a business aspect to it. And so that familiarity with the engagements from the Pentagon, the requirements community, the secretariat, and those sorts of things, they help to complete that picture because the ability to ultimately deliver capability, the science and the technology and all that goes into the delivery, the development and delivery of capability, there is definitely a business aspect to that. So this, this, um, this last 2/3 of my career, I say, has really been focused on making sure that the ability to deliver technical capability is appropriately undergirded by the fact that you got to have resources, right amount, and right time to bring all that to bear.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So I did see, I think you mentioned, your education background in computer engineering. How did you come about making the decision for that major?
Well, so for me, I actually, through my early years in high school, I actually enjoyed math. I had teachers and mentors who were, many of them, in math, physics, and chemistry. So those were kind of the teachers, the educators that I tended to gravitate towards. And so just that enjoyment. And I know a lot of people say this, but it's kind of true. At home, my parents reinforced the things that I like with, I remember Lincoln Logs, dating myself. And so things that are kind of educating, creativity, but also logic and those sorts of things, how things fit together. That was kind of the reinforcement I have at home. So that combination of early life kind of helped me in my enjoyment and gravitation probably towards the math and sciences.
Okay.
Mhm.
And specific to computer engineering, how did you go about making that decision versus like a mechanical engineering or something else?
Yeah, that's very interesting because I actually was on the first uh, year where Clemson University, which is my college, introduced the computer engineering curriculum. I was initially interested in electrical engineering, but computer engineering was introduced again at my freshman year. So I chose electrical and computer engineering. It was the same curriculum until you got to like the second semester of your junior year. Then you tended to go more into programming, operating systems, and those sorts of things. So the invention of computers at your fingertip, back then processors were Z80s and 8080 processors, way ancient technology at this point. And so the intrigue of having computing power at your fingertips gravitated me towards the computer engineering aspect of it. And then the coding, writing computer program code, and that sort of thing. I actually enjoyed that. And again, the different than today, but having that much computing power at your fingertips uh, also lent to gravitate me more towards the computer engineering side of that curriculum as opposed to electrical.
Okay.
So we
Oh,
did circuits and almost the same. We did the same curriculum, but the circuits lab versus the computing lab, the computing aspect of it had more of my attention span relative to enjoyment. So I went with that.
okay. So it's primarily your math background, understanding, liking math really kind of led you into that
I
field.
think, yeah, I think so, but I also think it's logic because to at that point in time, coding and making the logic of how you wanted something to work reflected in code was a challenge for me, and so I enjoyed that process. And it, again, dating myself, but when it compiled and it didn't work, I was like, ah. So would often find myself enjoying going back and figuring out, okay, what did I leave out? So that process of trying to understand and apply logic, I just found it intriguing. And so again, it lent more towards why I, again, and so computer science, which is related but different, in that you also have to understand in computer engineering how the circuitry works together. And so I enjoyed that piece of it, but again, the ability to apply and then reapply when you didn't get it quite right relative to the logic, that just kept me interested.
Agree. That's the same way I am. It's I don't. Not every problem in engineering is black and white. Sometimes you have to do the analysis. You have to, one solution that you thought was the greatest thing ever, just find out, well, maybe that doesn't work. So
Yeah.
it sounds like that's kind of where you went with that as well.
Hmm.
Okay. So going back to your background, working with PEO aircraft carriers or even your new role right now, is there any any topic that you would want to share to, high school kids or new engineers or people thinking of the engineering field?
In aircraft carriers, we just delivered the Ford class all the way through what we call a shock trial, which is how does she respond to major charges released in close proximity of the hull. And I mean, something that is not done for every vessel, but as the lead ship of the class, we had that opportunity. And so the ship performed extremely well. But that was a culmination of years of science that went into the design of that vessel, into the new launching system, the new arresting system, launching of aircraft, and the retrieving or the arresting of aircraft. And so the research and development that went into that is representative of the fact that you may not think of the maritime as a place where technology is needed, but it absolutely is. We need ways for our sailors to be able to not have as much maintenance be part of what they do as it is operations. How do we make sure that where we can move away from mechanical and hydraulics into more electronics? Those are the things that if you are a person who enjoys um, applying research and development principles, a person who enjoys just thinking about how to do, especially mechanical things, perhaps in a more advanced way, that skill set, that way of thinking are absolutely things that we want and need to apply in a maritime environment. So don't be restricted by the fact that we're floating. If you think about what happens even in, you pick it, an amusement park, there's a lot of science and technology that goes into the new roller coaster rides, right? And so that same thing applies. As a matter of fact, electromagnetics, some of our principles are also applied in some of the theme yards on roller coasters. So that technology, I would say to folks who are interested in the work that we do, don't let the water be the restriction of bringing new and improved and advanced technology to us.
All right, Ms. Davis. So if you could you share something interesting or unique that's happened to you or any experiences you've had throughout your career working for the Navy?
An experience that I think would probably um, be interesting for those who like adventure, which the Navy is full of that, is early in my career when we were going to a part, I was shipboard, and we were headed into, the ship was headed to a location where, as a civilian, I had to de-embark, and and that was to occur at sea. So the ladder's thrown down the side, and that's called a Jacob's ladder. And I had to descend the ladder into a small boat. And I think the sea state was probably 5, 6. And if you know anything about sea state, that is like a very, very choppy environment relative to the water. So climbed down the ladder, and I'm sure there are lots of people who were more nervous than I was, but I did it. And uh, the proximity of the small boat to the large hull of the ship, you have to be very careful with that proximity. So you almost have to throw yourself from the ladder over into the small boat. And so I was, a much younger person. I would not do that today. But as a much younger person, how exciting is such a thing to know that part of my service included the fact that I had to transfer and be exposed to really how, um, I don't want to say scary, but how the maritime is an environment where you really have to be ready to be out there, and civilians can be called upon uh, as engineers And most of the systems aboard the ships, we're talking about highly computerized systems in most cases. And as people who develop and sustain those systems, we have to go into that environment. And sometimes the ability to maneuver includes some pretty interesting transfer opportunities, such as that. And so that's one of my, if I think about something that, again, if you want to be in an exciting environment, that's a great example. Try climbing down the Jacob's ladder and throwing yourself into a small boat to transfer off of a vessel. I mean, some people like I've taken many helos off of ships on the carriers you caught on and off. So just taking part in that environment. Again, if you like that kind of stuff, then there's enough of it to go around.
Thank you. Awesome. I can only imagine. Never had that experience, but I can only imagine that could that could be a little scary and fun at the same time.
Yeah, if you like a few G's, then you probably would love landing and taking off of a carrier as well. So yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you for having me, Xavier. I am pleased to be here, have been here. Um, it's exciting to even see another engineer, especially one that touches the aviation mission set as the carriers did. So thank you for this opportunity to share with the audience today some of my story.
Many people will learn and take something from this experience. So thank you so much.
Thank you.